Welcome to the Third Win channel, where today we're taking a look at the characters of iCarly for Season 3 specifically. So, we have 27 characters to go through today. Every character, I'm going to give my thoughts on them this season, and then I'm going to put them in one of these 5 tiers. So, let's get to it. Starting with, I'd say the star of the season, Carly Shay. So, obviously, has to be season's greatest. I think this is one of Carly's best seasons ever. Of the 9 seasons of iCarly we've seen a huge growth for her. Her talking about her mom finally, her maturing to realize her feelings for Freddy. All these things together. Miranda's acting was incredible. I mean, everything all together, Carly was phenomenal this season, and I'd gladly give her character of the season if, we're starting this tier list strong. The only lowlight with her maybe was some of her, the idea of her being kind of pretty dumb and not graduating high school, and some of her comments were very, dumbed down from, for example, the original. But other than that, she was phenomenal this season. Next, we got Freddy, who has to go in season's greatest too. Of course, he's finally realized this lifelong love for Carly, and they're now a couple, and seeing him as a father and as a boyfriend, and things going well just in his life generally, him opening up about the gap between the original iCarly and the revival, everything all together. I've loved Freddy's development this season, even his relationship with Spencer. There's no bad element about Freddy's character, and I feel like he's grown with every season of iCarly, and he just keeps doing it. And the hair is better. Literally everything about Freddy is just top tier this season. So, has to be in season's greatest. Next, we're going with the big dogs first. Spencer is next, and is he enough to go into the season greatest? Well, honestly, I have to, because I thought season 1 and season 2, Spencer was kind of running on this highlight / solid level, but in this season, he has elevated. We've seen him mature more. Him rising up to the parenting game with Carly. Him also opening up about his kids. I mean, all of these storylines with him. I loved him, and what's it called? I Like Your Shoes, where he's at the end scene with all the money. There's just Spencer's funnier, more mature. I feel like he's more in tune to his character this season than he was in the last season. So just based on that growth, I have to put Spencer in the season's greatest. And he has some of the funniest moments, like when he's running down when he finds out Carly's pregnant. All of that, right? Next, by the way, these color-coded names, the blue ones are the ones that have appeared just in this season, and the white ones are series-long regulars, I guess, or multiple season characters. Next, we got Alicia, who is from episode 6 this season, and she is maybe a potential love interest for Spencer. So I'd say I'd put her. I didn't feel like she made a very big impression. Her story was interesting, but I'm just going to put her in solid. I feel like she just did her job, and she can only go up from here, I hope, yeah, that's it for Alicia. Probably one of the smaller characters on this list. Next, we got Myrtle, who comes from an episode which I think a lot of people didn't like, and maybe is this season's worst episode, at least according to fans. And her character, I guess it served its purpose, but it was also a little bit annoying. I'd say it just by that, all that together, it kind of serves a low light of the season, a bit of a silly character, I guess, that didn't make entirely that much sense. Moving on, we have Millicent, who I think in season 1 I gave Millicent probably somewhere in the middle of the tier list, and then maybe in the second season she was a highlight, and she's getting closer and closer to the top. I still want to see more for Millicent, but she's definitely growing. I'd say Millicent was a highlight. Seeing her figure out this relationship between Carly and Freddy, try to be a part of Marissa and Lubert's wedding. Just, she's starting to more naturally fit into this cast of characters, and I like Millicent. I think she's a great character with a great potential, so definitely solid in that highlight tier. Next, we got Harper, who I feel like has been on a downward spiral in the show, and she started strong. I liked her relationship with Dutch, I liked her relationship with Carly, but now, especially with Carly being as close to Freddy as she is this season, and with all that's going on for her, they don't spend as much time together. Harper has other things going on, so her role in the show has changed drastically. And I think that she was one of, in a season as strong as this one, she was one of the lowlights, I would say. Is that too harsh for Harper? Probably, but I would say she's in the subpar tier. And I know this is a hot take, and this is not her character generally in the whole show, but just this season, what I'd expect, I think Harper was subpar. And, a lot of that comes from the weakest element of the season, which I would say is Harper and Tinsley and all those subplots we got, and the whole episode we got based on that, the eighth episode, which was, again, the one where Myrtle's from. So I'd say that just because of that, kind of this element of it being the weakest, I had to put her in subpar. Next, we got Possum, who I don't know. I'm split on Possum. I can't be a highlight for me, and it might be solid, but I almost want to put it in subpar. There is an episode ranked for this season coming as well soon, which I think is going to be a more elaborate video. And I struggled to put I Go Public further up because of Possum, if that makes any sense. But yeah, funny sometimes, but I guess not the best. Next, Troy. Troy was kind of like a small fling for Carly, of course. I mean, I don't think it was serious. It never would have been serious, I guess. But he did his job. He was solid. I thought he was pretty funny. One of the more interesting romantic interests Carly has had. So is he a highlight? I wouldn't say so, but probably solid. Next, we got Toby, who, I mean, I feel did literally nothing for that episode. Like a little bit of nostalgia for Freddy, and it's fun that they're there, but I wish they would have given this character a little bit more time, maybe to develop some kind of story, something that's relevant to today. But yeah, I guess I'd put Toby in subpar. Nothing. There's nothing dragging it down to a low light. It's not like bringing down the season, but it's just subpar. Next, we got Tinsley. Oh boy. So I feel like Tinsley was she was introduced this season. And there's, I guess, a lot of things wrong with her character, but I don't think that it's enough. Like, Harper's been compared to some previous stronger seasons, but I don't think Tinsley, is it a low light? See, this is tough. I don't know. It's just a feeling. It's like it's such a strong season, so the lowest part is actually elevated anyway. But I don't know. I'm gonna put Tinsley in subpar next to Harper, but I've already acknowledged that this is one of the weaker parts of the season, and Tinsley's character, I feel like, is bad for the show. And, just for that reason, I'm going to put her in low light, but not necessarily because I don't like her. I don't know. I don't like her character that much, but she's not, like, that bad, I'll put her there. Next, we got Sunny, who didn't make much of an impression in the last season and really didn't in this season either. I'd say in that really solid premiere, she is one of the weaker parts of that episode. She's okay. Like, I could put her and drop her in solid, but I'm going to drop her in subpar. I just think that, like Toby, it just wasn't very interesting, I guess. Next, we got Shane, who I feel they could have gone in a lot of directions with him. And the direction they ended up going was interesting and served a purpose, I guess. I wouldn't say, I thought when I first heard he was going to be in this season, I thought he might be in the highlight tier, but I'm just going to stick him in solid. Did his job, nothing else. Next, we got Rodney, who I have to say, like, when I heard Rodney was coming back, I thought, like, we'd get way more out of his character, right? Maybe a whole episode based around him, I don't know. But when we didn't, and he cracked a few jokes, blah, blah, blah. But again, I think he struggles with the same thing Toby did. It didn't, like, bring the episode down, but also didn't add that much to it. I'm still happy these old characters are coming back. It's awesome, but subpar in terms of the character itself, lots of potential, and it's not used. Next, we got Prunella, who I think was pretty uninteresting maybe in season 1, like just didn't leave much of a mark, but in this season, she became more of a character. And yeah, it wasn't in the strongest episode, but I'd say she was solid. I'd say top of solid. She doesn't deserve to be very, she's trending upwards for sure. For me. Next, we got Potter, who is definitely a season highlight for me. Or no, sorry, a highlight, yeah, a season highlight for this third season of iCarly. I just feel like it was one of the brightest moments of the season. We only saw her for, a maximum of like 3 or 4 minutes probably, but the idea of this like closely relevant, no, not related person to Spencer with the fire abilities and all sorts of things. It's just such a fun thing to have in the show. Could I put her in season's greatest? Probably not. But definitely a highlight up there with Millicent. Can't wait to see more of Potter in the future. Might be the best character that was introduced in this season. And actually, I'll go ahead and say that it probably was. Pearl. Pearl is always difficult to rate. And now that we've seen her full storyline, in terms of season 3 alone, I think that Pearl became more interesting and more kind of active, because in season 2 she felt really passive for the most part. So I did like that growth, and I think that Pearl made those first 2 episodes as exciting as they were. So I'm gonna drop her in the highlight tier. That might be a bit controversial, but I don't think Tinsley, I feel like, makes the show worse in some ways in storytelling. Maybe, I mean, that's yet to be resolved, but Pearl, I think, elevated it in season 3, not necessarily in season 2. Next, we got Paul, who, man, I'm tempted to drop just straight into season's greatest. And I think I might, because Paul is one of those characters that really rounds out the cast when you have him in multiple episodes. The show is really lacking that in the first 2 seasons. These kind of characters that don't just, drop off after a little bit, Paul being a recurring character really fills out the show, gives Spencer someone to banter with, gives Lubert someone to banter with, and just his dynamic with everyone. He kind of glues it all together. So for me, season's greatest. Love his antics, everything. Paul is fun. Next, we got Neville, who I'd say had a very good episode in season 1, one of my favorites. And now that standard was kind of kept up, because in season 3, the standards are a lot higher, iRobot Wedding was an incredible episode back in the day, but if it's compared to season 3 now, it's starting to drop down the rankings, So I think this episode, I faked it. It might have been not the strongest episode of this season, but Neville maintained everything, and Neville actually got better. I mean, he did his the acting, his character is funnier, everything. He has more character now. So I'd say, despite coming from one of the weaker episodes, I think Neville was a highlight for me seeing Neville again, despite the episode centered around him maybe not being the best of the season, if that makes any sense. So yeah, and Prunella is right up there with him almost. Marissa is her development has been interesting. I guess she would go in. I think she's similar to Millicent in this season. Marissa was in 5 episodes, which is the most out of all the recurring characters, and I think she definitely made this season better. But there's some things that are inconsistent, like how she feels about Carly and Freddy from last season, blah blah blah. She's no perfect character this season, but again, kind of fills everything out. Great to have her as a, always there type character. And yeah, she's always fun. She's definitely a highlight, doesn't bring the season down, and she definitely elevated it with her different plot lines. So, next we got Malika, who, unlike, what's his name, Toby and Rodney, I feel like Malika added more depth to Freddy's character, added more to the story with this kind of what is going on between them. They were close friends, okay? She still does magic, that's interesting. I'd say that this is a better example than Shane, Toby, and Rodney. I feel like that's a highlight of the season, something that makes that episode instantly more interesting for me. So that might be controversial, but I think Malika deserves to be as a highlight of this season. Next, we got Lubert, who was in my favorite, it wasn't my favorite episode last season, the I Object Lubert. And Lubert has developed. His character has filled out. I love the acting. I love seeing more of Lubert, his happy things that make him happy, things that make him sad, him developing as a man and being Marissa's husband and being a great, male figure for Millicent as well. I don't know. I thought he was super fun. I couldn't put him any lower than season's greatest personally. I don't know why. I think that his character was amazing, and I love how his original character has turned into this. Is there a better growth storyline? I don't know. I feel like there isn't. Next, we got Gwen, and she's there. She's dark. I mean, I think Gwen's character is fantastic. She was great in season 1, and she was perhaps on the same level this season. But that episode is a little bit rushed, and her character does flip-flop a little bit. But I still love her presence and her relationship with Millicent. I'm going to still put her as a highlight, perhaps, somewhere behind Pearl here. But if she didn't flip-flop like that in episode 9 in her like decision making, if it wasn't so sudden, that perhaps she could have been like a season greatest moment. But she's just a highlight. I liked Gwen. I like her presence in the show. Next, we got Franklin, Principal Franklin, Teddy or Ted. I don't know how you what he goes by, but I love seeing Franklin. I think his appearance in this season kind of carries on his character from the first season, which was maybe hard to understand, but it's kind of working out now. You know, in retirement, relaxing, comes to this reunion for free drinks or whatever. You know, I can totally start to understand Franklin's character more in the revival, and definitely I feel like a highlight of the season. You know, could they have done more? Maybe. And I mean, the gag where he raises his drink in the picture is just phenomenal. I mean, very funny. I'm gonna put him right behind Neville, perhaps. Maybe, you know, definitely could have been better. You know, doesn't quite deserve to be in season's greatest. Next, we got Emily, and I think Emily and her whole plot of the Toledo house flip or whatever it's called is one of the lowlights of the season. You know, that Toledo episode could have been higher rated and better if we didn't have kind of that silly plot line with Emily, but at the same time it kind of gave Lubert something to do, and you know, whatever. But I didn't really like Emily. I don't think anyone really did, from what I read in the comments. Next we got Dimitri, who's another series or season hate from the fans. I didn't see anyone who liked Dimitri, maybe one person, and I don't think there's necessarily too much wrong, I guess, with his character. He's somewhat interesting in that he's like playing two sides with Tinsley, and I don't know, he definitely doesn't come off as likable, but there's probably some depth there. But at the same time, he's connected with the same kind of Harper-Tinsley dynamic, which didn't really work really well this season. So I'm going to put Dimitri as a low light. And, you know, he didn't really make that I Faked It episode any better, you know? Then lastly, we have Danica, and I think Danica just did her job. You know, I wouldn't say she was a highlight. And like, you know, a character like Marissa, finding her a friend, I guess Marissa is crazy enough that you get someone like Danica who's more like toned down. That makes sense, but just solid. Did her job just like Troy did, or just like Shane did, I think. And I thought Danica's performance in the finale was pretty funny compared to her Toledo episode, which was completely dead in terms of what she brought to it. So that's my tier list and kind of what I thought about every character in this season. Let me know where you guys disagree. I have a feeling some of these you will disagree. And I'm looking forward to ranking the episodes. I kind of alluded to that in this tier list. But thank you, Third Win fans who have joined the channel. And if you guys want to join the discussion about this kind of thing, then you can join the Discord, which I'm sure is somewhere in the description or in the channel banner. But anyways, thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you guys very soon for the next one.